My work includes not only reporting on large-scale fraud cases, including some which are currently still under investigation by authorities, but it also includes, being a journalist holding power to account is one of our main roles. And in many of the cases that I've covered, those who engage in fraudulent activity often are in positions of power. I would like to think that my work highlighting what the authorities and law enforcement agencies are doing to fight against fraud every single day may have put some fraudsters off, but I won't hold my breath there. I think that most importantly, my work has probably created awareness of what fraud is. I think it's quite important to showcase that fraud isn't always, the $40 million mortgage fraud case, which the New Zealand courts in fact has actually already seen. It also includes things like the misuse of public funds and taxpayer money, also things like employee embezzlement and online scams. And I think if I can show New Zealanders what fraud looks like, they can do better to avoid it. I think the benefit of being in media as well is that we have mass awareness. I'm lucky enough that my work reaches almost 1 million people in any given week through our online radio and television platforms as well. And that's something that I, and in fact all of my colleagues at RNZ, don't take lightly. I would agree with my sources on this one though, that prevention does definitely lie in education. There's so many incredible enforcement agencies and organisations and in fact volunteers out there who are doing really amazing work to fight fraud every single day. And I think without the media, the public wouldn't actually know about the work that they're doing, and people deserve to know about the work that others are doing to fight fraud.
Operation Deadwood commenced in our office after we saw a quantity of complaints come through regarding the elderly and the vulnerable who had been scammed over the phone.
Large media phase as far as prevention was undertaken. Hundreds of victims throughout New Zealand were getting defrauded of millions of dollars in total by this offshore-led scam.
I think operations like Deadwood is a really good example of how law enforcement within New Zealand and other partners can collectively focus on apprehending offenders and to curb this behaviour in New Zealand.
We took ownership of the fraud throughout the whole of New Zealand, arresting up to this date 18 offenders. The total loss to New Zealand victims just in our office alone is in the multiple millions of dollars. We believe that's just a small fraction of the total loss.
Operation Deadwood is a reassurance to the members of the public that we do consider this crime type as serious and that we do actively investigate, and hopefully, for us as police officers, it really builds the trust and confidence that we are doing what we can to protect our communities.
So the ANZ scam program started this year when we noticed that customers were falling for scams a lot more than we'd like them to, and needed some help being able to identify scams and how to respond to them. So I went out to ANZ staff across New Zealand and said, is anyone interested in helping? And we had a huge response, and we now have 140 people as part of this program. They've all been trained up in how to give fraud and scam education, and they've been out into their local communities to speak to over 5,500 customers since the start of the year. And it doesn't matter if they're ANZ customers or not, we're just getting out to anyone who this could be impacted by, which is all New Zealanders. So some of the key outcomes have been people having a much greater awareness of fraud and scams and how to spot them. It started a really nice public conversation where people are going and talking to their friends and family about these things. We've had people come into branches. We've even had a staff member be stopped in the supermarket and given feedback and asked a question about fraud. We've also had retirement villages report to us that their residents are far more confident using technology and feel that they're able to now bank safely online and use some of the channels that they wouldn't have used previously. I think for my role and for banking fraud generally, the future of fraud prevention really lies in collaboration. I know we say this a lot, and banking isn't actually competitive when it comes to fraud, but the thing is, the more that organisations put controls and systems in place to prevent fraud, the more fraudsters are just going to go directly to individuals and socially engineer or manipulate them into making payments. So I think we need to be all working together to have some key messages to drive that public change that's really necessary to stop this behaviour.